All right, I'm going to go ahead and start us off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first forum of 2026. If you can believe it, it's already January 22nd. My name is Mo McKenna. I am a board member with Friends of Clark County, and I will be facilitating tonight's session. I am a proud Clark County resident and really happy to be talking about such an important topic tonight. Really, we're focused on parks, trails, open spaces, something that is core to the mission of Friends of Clark County. And we're just thrilled that you all have taken time out of your new year to spend this evening with us. Just a little bit more about Friends of Clark County before we get started. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization working with other community partners to really build a thriving Clark County. We believe, and I hope you do too, that our work is essential to the future of Clark County. We're the only organization here that defends the Growth Management Act, and we're really focused on making sure that this community is livable for all. So we want to make sure that we're protecting natural spaces, community resources such as water, local farming, forest lands, and then I put it in bold, parks and trails, yes, and habitats for future generations. You can certainly learn more about us at our website, or hopefully you're already following us on social media. And thank you again for being here. I'm going to do just a little bit of housekeeping. So, just to give you an overview of where we're going tonight, our panelists, we have three panelists tonight. They're going to present for about 45 minutes just to contextualize our conversation. And I know what's coming. It's super, great updates. I've learned so much through the process of planning this forum. I believe that you all are in for a treat in terms of understanding where we're at as a county and the exciting possibilities for our future. And then we're going to have about a 20 to 25-minute panel discussion. We've collected questions from our social media followers, our membership. Thank you if you've submitted questions, and we'll be talking through those in the last part of our session today. At the end, we're going to certainly provide some things that you can do to engage. And if you need something, we're here to help, especially feel free to message Carissa, who's manning the Friends of Clark County. And then we also have folks manning the chat tonight that can answer questions for you. Following this webinar tonight, we're going to share materials with everybody. So you're going to get a copy of this to share out with other people who might be interested. We'll have a link to the recording on our website. And we're also going to ask you just to fill out a brief survey. You can also ask additional questions, which we'll send to our panelists. And I'll just mention that because we know the questions in advance that we're going to have for that panel discussion. If you ask questions in the chat that you want answered, we will send that on following the session tonight and do our best to get you an answer to that. Thank you again for being here. Okay, let me introduce our fabulous panel tonight. We have three experts on parks, trails, open spaces, recreation in Clark County, topics that are near and dear to our hearts. So first of all, we have Ross Hoover. Ross he has been doing this work for 26 years, parks, planning, development, recreation, anywhere from Seattle to the Portland metro area. He currently serves as the Parks and Nature Division Manager for Clark County, and he was previously at the city of Tualatin. He has a degree in environmental studies from Western Washington University and has a graduate degree in a senior management program from the University of Texas LBJ School of Public Affairs. Second, we're going to be hearing from Counselor Glenn Young. He is a Vancouver-based entrepreneur and small business owner, and very importantly, he is our county counselor for District 1. He brings a really strong commitment to community service, serving organizations including the National Alliance on Mental Health and Illness, Southwest Washington, the Vancouver Neighborhood Alliance, and several local advisory committees. Counselor Young also has an international educational background, and this is a fun fact, he's fluent in German, which I did not know. His public service work reflects a longstanding dedication to community and well-being, and we're so thankful that Counselor Young is here. And lastly, we're going to hear from David Perlick, who is the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services at the City of Vancouver. He has worked there for more than 20 years in a variety of roles, and he has been a director for the past 4 years and oversees more than 100 park sites totaling 2,200 acres, as well as multiple community facilities and a wide range of public programs and events. Thank you so much to our panelists for being here. And with all of that out of the way, we get to hear from our panelists. I'm going to turn it over to Ross Hoover.
Thank you, Mo. Very honored to be here. So thank you all for taking your time today to spend with us and hear about parks, all things parks and nature throughout the county and the city of Vancouver. So very excited to be here. We have an amazing system of parks in Clark County. As you can see from this photo, some amazing natural areas that I'm sure all of you enjoy, to some amazing small pocket parks and community parks. Our community really treasures parks, recreation, and being out in nature. And our job is to provide those areas throughout the county. We're going to talk a little bit about a number of topics. On the next slide, you'll see just kind of a breakdown of what it is we're going to discuss today. We want to give you a really good sense of where we're at right now, what the state of the system is. We'll start by giving you an overview of what it is we're focused on. Then we'll jump into where we're at now, how we stack up nationally with other agencies of similar size providing services for a similar size population. And then we'll talk a little bit about the focus on the future and what the future looks like for Parks and Nature in Clark County. So our mission and vision at Clark County Parks and Nature is that we enrich communities by creating and stewarding parks that promote health, economic wellness, boost economic vitality, and preserve the natural areas and ensure that access to the outdoors for all. Making sure that we are not just focused on building that next park or changing out an old playground for a new playground or providing athletic fields and trails. We're really focused on those four key areas that you see at the end of this mission vision statement. That is, parks provide spaces for health and wellness and economic benefits and vitality in our community. They really provide spaces for people to enjoy nature and get outside and recreate. And kind of underlining all of that is we really focus on ensuring that our spaces are accessible, welcoming, and that everybody throughout the county feels like these are their parks. And on the next slide, we'll give you a snapshot of what our system looks like by the numbers. So traditional parks within the county, we have just over 7,100 acres, almost 7,200 acres of actual parks as we define them. We have an additional 4,300 acres of legacy lands throughout the county. Those are natural areas that are set aside specifically for conservation, preservation, and the enjoyment of nature. Those spaces, both parks and legacy lands, really act as our natural areas and parks throughout the county in the county system. And they can be found at 111 different sites throughout the county. So quite a few locations, and I'm sure all of you have enjoyed and will enjoy into the future. And our work is focused in these five areas listed below. That we acquire new parkland and new natural areas, and then we have a team that focuses on planning and designing that future park, and that happens through meaningful engagement with community. As staff, we are the stewards of these spaces. They're not ours to design. And so we really need you to play a role in what the designs and what those future parks do and how they serve you. And then we go out and develop that space once we've heard from you. And then we have a separate team that focuses on maintaining those spaces. So anything from cleaning restrooms to diagnosing an irrigation issue, to making sure that picnic shelter that you rented is clean and usable for your event. We have a whole team of folks that are focused on those rentals. Last year, we had over 1,700 picnic shelter reservations in our Clark County parks and countless athletic field reservations and large events throughout the park system. So really a varied body of work, and we rely on a lot of partners throughout the county to make this happen. So this is just a snapshot of where we're at today, but on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the uniqueness of our park system that we have in the upper left. You'll see a playground and a small neighborhood park. We manage small neighborhood parks, but we also manage community parks, and so you'll see the athletic field. These are sites like Pacific Park or like Luke Jensen Park, Community Park, and those are spaces that are heavily used and enjoyed by folks. And then we step up to a larger scale park, and those are our regional parks. These are the places like Louisville, Vancouver Lake, Lacamas Lake, and Frenchman's Bar, places where people go in the summer to cool off in the river or body of water, to play frisbee golf, or just to find a trail to ride a bike or hike or walk on. And so our system is really varied between all those different types of park infrastructure. Now let's talk a little bit about how we pay for that. How do we fund our parks? Kind of two buckets here. So operations and maintenance is on the left, and capital projects is on the right. So capital is the development of new parks and maintaining what we have on a large scale maintenance. So capital, large scale maintenance, meaning it might be a roof replacement, or it might be a restroom renovation, or it might mean a whole new park. And so that's what's on the right. On the left side, operations. This pays for our day-to-day work in the parks, keeping our spaces open. So we have three main sources that pays for our operations and maintenance. One is the general fund, and that is the county's general fund, and we receive about 1.9. This is 2024 numbers, 1.9 million from the general tax fund. The second source is abbreviated here, but it's the Metropolitan Park District. What you see is MPD, and that's 4.1 million. This source is a unique source. It was a voter approved permanent levy, and it is located north of the city of Vancouver, but south of Vancouver's urban growth area. So it's located exclusively outside of the city of Vancouver in the county, but only within Vancouver's urban growth area. And voters approved that measure many years ago to fund parks development and maintenance operations within that area. And the last source is our parks generated revenue. And this source is essentially fees for use. So parking fees, when someone rents an athletic field or a picnic shelter, that collects some funds, and it's just under $1 million in 2024. On the right side, we'll go jump over to capital projects again. How do we pay for the construction and major upkeep? Number one is park impact fees. And so we collect park impact fees, and those are utilized to develop new parks and capacity enhancing projects. That fee is collected at the time of permit issuance and paid for by new development only. And so most people don't pay park impact fees, and we use these dollars exclusively for the parks for new folks coming to the county. REIT 2, or real estate excise tax 2. So when you sell real estate in Clark County, a small percentage goes into this fund, and that fund is almost exclusively used for major maintenance, roof repairs, and renovations of aging infrastructure. And then we use the first two sources of capital to go out and get grants. And so we bring in grant dollars on an annual basis to supplement the work. So that's where our funding comes from for Parks and Nature at the county. We're going to talk a little bit more about funding, but in a context as compared to agencies around the country, and there's some really good data on this that comes from National Recreation Parks Association. It's a tool that agencies complete on an annual basis, and it allows us to compare against similar sized agencies across the country. So what you'll see on this bar chart is the acres of parkland per thousand residents. And so in Clark County, we have 13.36 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And the national median is 9.8, and the accumulation of all agencies across the country, that median is 10.2. So in terms of acres per thousand residents, things are looking really good. The second column you see there at 20.07, that includes our legacy lands properties. And so acres per parkland per thousand looks really great. The question here is, how is that acreage distributed? And a lot of that acreage, there are big gaps geographically throughout the county where we have infrastructure, parks infrastructure missing. That might be a trail system, or parks in an area that we simply don't have any yet. And so on the next slide, we're going to talk about our average residents per park. And so you can see the national median is 9,687. We're at 4,832 at Clark County Parks. And the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how we stack up from a funding perspective. So the national median for parks agencies our size, serving a population we serve over 500,000 residents, the average operating expenditure per capita is $51.73. And you can see Clark County is at $16.04 per capita. All parks agencies across the country, the national median is 8.6. So we are significantly less per per resident. And this graph shows full-time equivalents or full-time staff per 10,000 residents. And so we've got these gaps in funding and in full-time staff to actually do the work. That shows up on a daily basis. So on a daily basis, we track all of our tasks, our maintenance tasks. 33% of the tasks are not getting completed on a daily basis. Graffiti and vandalism can't be addressed quickly because we don't have the money to do it, and we don't have the staffing levels to do it. Oftentimes, bathrooms are closed if there's significant vandalism because we simply don't have the capacity to fix it quickly. And so, what ends up happening is only the most urgent maintenance and repairs are being completed. Those that are most critical are being completed. And so, as a result, things stack up. We call that deferred maintenance. And so that list continues to increase. And so you can see the image here is illustrative of the challenge. You can see all the moss on that roof. This is one picnic shelter of many in the system. And so there are things not getting done. That list stacks up, and the bill needs to come due at some point to deal with these deferred maintenance items. Some of them are small, like moss on a roof, and some of them are much more significant structural issues, or trip hazards, so on and so forth. So it's essential that we understand that deferred maintenance list, and we'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. How do we address this issue? We have significant funding gaps under the national median. We have this growing deferred maintenance list. And so what we're doing in 2026 is really focusing on building our foundation so we can reach a higher level of success in the future. So we're doing some significant planning work. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. First of all, we are completing what's called a parks facilities condition assessment and inventory. So we are walking every single property in our park system, and we are scoring every single asset from a park bench to a picnic shelter to a trail to an athletic field. We will know exactly what condition that system is in, and we will be able to then strategically deal with the most urgent items. And so that's an important data collection step we're doing this year. The second bullet is our Parks and Recreation Open Space Trails Plan. This is our 20-year vision document for what the future of our system looks like, what you want it to be, and we capture that within that system plan. Within that system plan, we're also going to be redefining our level of service. Our level of service meaning the acres per thousand residents. Acres of parkland per thousand resident is our current level of service definition. We're going to rethink that definition to capture quality of the system and other elements. Also within our Parks and Recreation Open Space Trails Plan, we are going to develop and really laser focus on our key regional trail needs and our priority trails. We are also completing our Americans with Disabilities Act self-evaluation and transition plan, so we will know where the deficiencies are for access to our parks, trails, and natural areas. And we're also completing our park design standards. So we have consistency across our park system from park to park. We know exactly how we're developing it, how we're maintaining it for the long term. And the last bullet really represents a recognition of a few things. One, that we are missing some key elements to a regional park system, and number one in that is our trails. We have a void of true regional trails, and so we're gonna focus on that shift in the context of being a regional provider. We're also going to redefine what our priorities are through this Parks Recreation Open Space plan process. We need you to be a part of that. We really want you to be a part of it, but it's not an option. Uh, Come on out. We're going to send Friends of Clark County and a number of other nonprofits throughout the community information on how you can connect and meaningfully engage and contribute to that 20-year vision for our future. And on our next slide, we're going to transition. I'm going to hand the mic over to Counselor Glenn Young to talk about more about the future.
Thank you, Ross. I just have to say real quickly how much I appreciate Ross being in our county and working for us. The council for a long time has really been almost, I would say, begging for our parks program to be revamped and to look at, level of service. Are we meeting that? Does the community demand more? And then looking at how we can pay for that. And I will tell you, just from being on the council, that one day Ross came to us with this big plan, and I was kind of like, wow, he's doing it. So just wanted to thank him for that and for the great work that he's doing. But I did want to kind of tackle this and kind of I'm approaching more kind of the political and policy, components of this. Increasing access to park and open spaces as the population grows. We all know we're growing really quickly. And that is a challenge. We're wrestling through the comprehensive plan update currently. I would assume most of you are aware of that project that we're undertaking, and they're not creating any more new land. There is a finite amount of land, and what we're looking at doing is primarily, if not entirely, increasing density where people are already living inside the urban growth area. And so that creates some challenges. You're looking at putting more people into the same area that has been served by a system for a long period of time. So what is that going to look like? Are we going to end up having to purchase and build and develop more parks in those urban areas where we're increasing density levels? And with that comes the challenge of when you're trying to procure land in an already developed area, it can be very difficult. It will be very expensive, if not even impossible to do. Because as things develop further, it's harder and harder to find land. You're more likely to have to purchase a piece of land with a building on it, and you pay for that building to be there and then demolish it and build the park. So that is a subject of conversation that's going to be ongoing as we do deal with the growth that's coming into the county. Multimodal transportation opportunities. That is, I think, a great opportunity that we have to work on. And I saw in the chat someone had mentioned the Burnt Bridge Creek Trail. That is a gem, in my opinion, that exists in our city. I would love to see more things like that that are countywide and become really integrated into the transportation system. So you have, this off-road connection to various pockets and areas of the county that are interconnected, that make sense and are useful to folks, as well as people just using it for recreation as well. So that's something that we're going to be working on. It also, when you talk about those trails, it creates some, economic activity possibilities as well. You can end up with some commercial space and little shops and things like that that'll open up along those trail lines so that people have kind of a destination to go through. So there's lots of advantages, lots of good things for the community having multimodal transportation access throughout the county. So strength, coordination with cities and regional providers. This is something that when I was elected, I really, really wanted to focus on, and I have done that, and I'm seeing some fruits of that labor, thank goodness. And this being one of them, that we are all Clark County. Just because you're the city of Vancouver doesn't mean you don't live in Clark County. And so those borders have really been a wedge between the different jurisdictions being able to work with each other for a long time. And so that is changing, that is shifting. There's this willingness to work together and understanding that we all have the same goals in mind. We might have a slightly different picture of how to get there, but we all want the same things for the county. So increasing that connection with the cities. I've always thought when we call it Vancouver Urban Growth Area, and that's exactly what I feel it is. It is Vancouver's urban growth area. Technically, we are in charge of the growth and the development that happens in that area, but it ultimately will be a piece of the city of Vancouver. So there really needs to be that connection between county staff and city staff when we're looking at our parks plan, how we're developing, when we're developing, what we're developing, and there's that communication to make sure that we're keeping our goals in alignment with each other.
Mm.
And transitioning to the regional park system of the future, Ross mentioned a little bit earlier. Well, actually, I don't know if he did this time, but the county is not designed. We really are an unusual county in the sense that we have these large urban growth areas. That is not something that is typical. And the county structure in general and the funding structure is not equipped to handle and support these large urban areas. So that creates a lot of challenges. We don't have, and we mentioned that earlier, we have this deficit. We have this growing list of needs that need to be addressed, and we're just simply not able to do it. The county has 16 undeveloped parks at this point, and we could develop some. I don't think we could develop all of them, but we could develop some of them. But the fact of the matter is we can't because we cannot maintain them. We don't have the funding for operations and maintenance. So you can't build something if you don't have a way to take care of it. And so that's really where we're at. That's why this becomes a big component that we're working on is a regional solution, how we all fund our park system. And talk will continue on annexation in the future. The city is a little better equipped to be able to maintain and operate those parks, but I will definitely agree with Dave. There are challenges because we were never really equipped to build them to begin with, and so they may not fit the standards that the city has. So there's going to have to be a significant investment by the city when they do take jurisdiction over their various parts of their urban growth area. They're going to have, some significant costs to bring it up to their standards. So that's just a little bit of what's going on. Parks are extremely important to me. I was very grateful at the remaining members of our council that they let me join this task force that we're working on. I'm trying to create a system-wide funding source. So pleasure to be here tonight, and I think it's Dave now, right?
Yes, let's go to Dave.
Well, great. Thanks very much. Uh, Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Friends of Clark County. I see many friends and partners out there. So really, this is a really great opportunity and really a great time to talk about this topic. And so, um, you heard my bio. I work with an amazing team. I want to talk about Vancouver Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services. And But I first want to start by saying we're working together within the county with Clark County and the other cities better than we have in a very long time. And so I really appreciate the leadership from the county council and Ross at Clark County Parks that we need to, because ecosystems don't recognize these boundaries that we create, nor do you when you're out on a trail or looking for adventures and staycations throughout the county. So I think it's really critical that we do work together. If we could move to the next slide. Again, thanks. I want to talk about City of Vancouver in our department. I am going to talk a little bit more broadly about everything that we do because we're a city and we function a little differently than a county typically does, and that's for good reason. So mostly I'll talk about our lands and parks, but just at a high level, I love my job. I think I have the best job with the city, and some of the amazing things that our staff has done recently and over a long period of time. I think we have a great system. There are so many good things out there. We have the same challenges, and our future is more cloudy. But let's talk about some of the positives. Really, so many of the place-defining spaces where we gather, where we experience community together, where we enjoy nature, where our families recreate together are in our parks and recreation system, and so that's incredibly exciting. I want to say we really have we'll look at standards in a second. I think we've got a really good distribution of neighborhood and community parks. Ultimately, if you don't have the land, you're behind because we're growing quickly, and in many cases we do have the land. This gets into maybe talking more about our entire set of services. We have an amazing outdoor events and festivals, and the community shows up, and that's amazing, and that's a great part of where we live, and we're really proud to do that. And I think it is a system. I think creating those connections in those spaces is really an important piece of the puzzle as well. And we have 2 community centers. We have swimming pools. We teach kids to swim. We have people recreating, staying healthy up to and beyond 100 years old. And so that's such a critical component of community health and connectedness as well. And it was stated, and I won't belabor the point, I think we have some amazing existing trail systems, and that's a real strength of our system. Next slide, please, Mo. Here's a map. You probably can't read this, but I just wanted to put it up here to reinforce a couple of things. You can see that the green dots are parks, and we do have a really well distributed system of existing parks and facilities. I think the other point I would make with this is we think broadly. We think about regional parks managed by the county. We also think about other special facilities like Officers Row in Fort Vancouver. That's great, valuable open space land that people enjoy. So we don't own and operate that, but we think about it in terms of our system planning. We think about schools as well. So hopefully what you can take away from this is we're thinking about an equitably distributed system throughout the community that meets community needs in every corner of Vancouver. A quick department overview. We're parks. We plan, we acquire, we design parks. We focus on trails, planning, and maintaining, and we manage a lot of park use. Down below, in somewhat smaller print, is our mission statement. I think we really want to think broadly about including our entire community in being connected and creating equitable access. And so I talked about our recreation programs, community centers, and community programs, and our cultural services program. I could talk a long time, and I won't, but the City of Vancouver has made a significant commitment to arts, culture, and heritage, and we're putting money behind that, and that's super exciting too, and that helps activate our system and connect our community. Next slide. So I'll get a little more granular here. I don't know if you knew it, but the City of Vancouver has 205,000 people. We've grown a lot. So here's a little bit of breakdown of the parks system and the lands that we own, manage, or collaborate on. We have 66 traditional neighborhood park sites, 17 community park sites. Those are our traditional parks where you see active use amenities and playgrounds. As stated, we count our county parks as part of the system because that's a really important point of access for the community. And we have many sites that are urban natural areas. They're not intended to be active use parks. They're there primarily to serve as preservation of that natural area. We want where it's possible to create human access there, but they're primarily natural areas. We have a number of special facilities, the largest of which is the Vancouver National Historic Reserve. And then we have some very large regional natural areas as well. Some allow access. Mostly these are surface water protection areas. But again, across the entire city, we own, manage, or collaborate on 2,700 acres of park property. And so I'm going to go through some of the same metrics comparison that Ross talked about. It looks like we missed a note on this slide, but this is our, there are two orange bars. I'll explain that, Vancouver and Vancouver. This is how we compare to national average of total park acreage per 1,000 population. And the first bar that says 2.56 acres is that is if we only count the traditional community and neighborhood parks. And so there's different cities are different in how they classify things. We wanted to look at it both ways. 8.64 acres per 1,000 is if we include throw all that 2,700 acres in there. I think what you'll see is no matter how we do the math, we're behind the national average for all agencies and for agencies our size. Not far behind, perhaps, but we are not above that level. Next slide. And so this is an interesting measure. This is, yeah, I don't know where the note went, but this is residents per park. And so in this case, actually, we want a low number. We want the more parks you have, the lower the population is per park. And that means they're well distributed and a lot of people have access to parks near them. We're doing pretty well in the number of parks. I think what this says compared to the last slide is we have a lot of parks. They're in many cases, they're kind of small. I think that if you look at our system, we have some gems, we have some basic facilities as well. And with our commitment to investing throughout the community, providing access and equity throughout the system, it shows you, while certain parks are working really well and supporting broad community use, we need to invest more. Next slide. And so this is where, yeah, this got, oh yeah, this is, yeah, sorry, the notes got kind of wonky in the transition over, but this is similar to what was presented by the county. This is our expenditures per, this is, I believe, this is comparing our total expenditures to agencies throughout the nation and in our size category. And what you'll see here is, while we're not way below, we are below national average in terms of our total commitment. We broke it, that gray and orange bar is broken apart by orange being just parks and gray including all of our recreation programs and events. Next slide, please. And then finally, this one came across okay. Our where you really see us not meeting the mark in terms of comparison to other agencies is our staffing level is 3.7. That note is not on there. If you look at our total department, we're 3.7 employees per, I believe it's 10,000 population. We're less than half the national average. So we have operated very lean, and I think that we've shown a lot of innovation in that, but that certainly presents long-term limitations on our ability to grow and meet the demands of coming population and additional challenges. Next slide, please. And so there's a lot of information on this slide. I'm getting through some of the standards and the comparison information. We actually also have adopted local park standards. Let me try to walk through this simply. The top couple rows are our adopted standards, where it says neighborhood park, acquire, develop. What the standard is we want to own and have developed 2 acres per 1,000 population throughout, if we average it across the city. And we additionally want to own 3 acres of community park, but we realize those community park sites are large. We don't expect the whole park to be developed. So we want to look at these various measures, and we want to own and provide 1 acre of urban natural area throughout the city per 1,000 population. You can, oops, can we go back? In the middle section, this is how we're actually doing based on analysis that was done about 2 years ago. And so in many cases, we're not meeting that standard. We're not meeting our own adopted standard. The numbers at the bottom accumulate What A, B, and C means is we've split the city up into planning districts. It's basically west, central, and east. And we want to look at it in different areas of the city to see where we're deficient. But if you focus on the overall, we just owned acreage is about 4.46 acres per thousand. We're hitting about 75% of our standards. So I think the numbers kind of track across. We compare ourselves nationally or look at our own standards. We're not falling off the table, but we're not meeting standards. And as growth occurs, every day somebody moves here, we fall further behind. So it's a period of time where we need to be concerned and we need to be looking at that. Next slide, please. So I want to talk through some of the key things about our system as well, just to kind of general information, unique elements. We have the oldest public park in Washington. I think there's a lot of things that we can really be proud and excited about. Esther Shore Park is the first established park in our state. We have a national park site in our community, which is amazing. Our community centers are awesome hubs of activity. We serve thousands of people every day. The growing culture and art focused, including events, many free activities that the community participates in, is really an amazing thing about our community. It brings people here. It spurs economic development. It makes us more connected. We specialize and provide programs for individuals with disabilities, and we've really taken a focus on ensuring accessibility well beyond standards. We want people to be included and able to get to and enjoy our facilities. So whether that's building design or park design or playgrounds, we're really trying to think about a high level of commitment to individuals with disabilities. And I think, I've talked about this several times. I think we really create a lot of community engagement and connection. We know that we bring, a lot of people talk about the city and they've experienced it through being at one of our park sites, enjoying an event, or being part of a community center. Next slide. Similar to the county, there are going to be similar comments, so I'll go kind of quickly. We talked about how our park metrics fall below our own standards and national averages. I'll show some slides about overall funding, but dedicated capital is not sufficient to meet the needs of growth. We are part of the city's general fund, and over multiple budget periods, we've been cut and we've lost staff. We're smaller today than we were in 2012. Vancouver is not smaller today than it was in 2012. So the number of staff that we have has gone down. Obviously, that creates tremendous challenges to grow and to meet needs. Ross talked about, you see some beautiful photos on this slide, but we leave stuff outside and there's natural wear and tear, and then there's vandalism and damage as well. So, just the ability to keep up with needs for maintenance and large repair is a real challenge. And I can't say any more about the comments on trail system planning. We're wholeheartedly in agreement that we should do this from a regional perspective. And I think from the city's perspective, we want to really lean into making sure that that's part of a very accessible multimodal system. Get off the bus or transit, go to the trail system, recreate, use it as a job, and use it to get to your work, use it to have fun. I also think that we really want to focus on connections. I think we have to get to the trail system to use the trail system as well. And so that's a real high commitment from the city of Vancouver. I think those are some things that we can do better as a city. Next slide. This is in one of the questions, so I wanted to highlight this, and I'll speak very briefly. I work with some great people that have much more knowledge than I do, but I'll try to provide some highlights. You may know that climate action is central to the city's strategic plan, and that Vancouver has adopted a very aggressive climate action framework. And we know that our parks and natural systems are a big part of that. I mean, we need to work on transportation, buildings. That's a huge part of the impact on global warming, but natural systems play an important role. And so what we're doing with the city is really leaning into alignment and working together as well as we can. City owns a lot of land. How can we make sure that regardless of the primary use or department, we're taking that natural systems lens and asking the question, what can we do to address climate? What can we do to address biodiversity loss, create pollinator habitat, and make sure that all of our lands serve both people, but also, and we think we can do this all in the same space, but also meet other goals as well. I think we have great people with our community who work for the city, focused on the urban forest, focused on clean water, environmental education, natural systems focus. We need to work together as well as possible. And so to really kind of make the point, these are actual photos. The photo in the middle at the top, hard to see a tree in that park. And I think we all know that this happens. That would be perceived as the easiest thing to maintain. I'm not sure that's necessarily true, because you have to mow it and you have to, there is a certain level of maintenance that's required there. But it seems it's once we're doing it, it seems easy, but that's not serving the community. And so we want less parks that look like that. The perception of safety is a big issue about why things end up this way. We want features to be more like on the right, which is a couple examples of where the community has volunteered and stepped in and done significant planting of native species to help build up the urban forest and the understory to really create those biodiverse areas with a lot of pollinator habitat. We need to think that way, and we need to think in alignment. And the city owns a lot of property, and we can make a lot of progress if we're working together. I think we're on this journey, but we're kind of at the beginning of making sure we're best aligned. So I wanted to kind of call that out. That's an important part of where our Parks Department is going. Next slide, please. How are we funded? We're throwing a lot of numbers at you, but I've tried to kind of similar. The words are a little different, but kind of mirrors what Ross presented. Our operating budget is on the left. Within the Parks Department, we're funded about $5.4 million if we look at 2024 numbers out of the city's general fund. About almost $4 million also comes from and supports our operations. That comes from fees, reservations, and user revenues. So we get a lot of revenue from the community, and that most of it occurs in the community centers. If you take a swim lesson, if you drop in to use the community center or have a membership, that's where most of that money comes from. It's also reservations in the parks. We don't directly manage the maintenance functions. That's in our public works department, but that's with as many park sites as we have in buildings. That $7.9 million is the estimated total amount of cost for all the maintenance. There's some building capital in there, so it's not all O&M. It's hard to divide the numbers, but that gives you kind of a round number approach to where we're at. I think $17.2 million is a lot of money, but we also have a lot of sites and large buildings, and so it doesn't buy as much as it used to, and that's the issue, that we feel good about the amazing things that are going on in Clark County, but we're also concerned about sustaining that and growing. Our capital budget is very similar to what Ross presented on the right. This is estimates from the 2024 budget year. I was doing some math when he was talking. If you combine the city and the county, we have 200 park sites. Combined, that's what we just showed is $18 million in capital. $18 million is a lot of money, but if you've built anything lately, it doesn't go very far across 200 park sites. And that's taking care of stuff, not just building new things. So we're both really struggling to keep up with the maintenance needs and serve new growth in terms of capital investment in parks. Great. Next slide, please. This forum had a great presentation on the comprehensive plan update process, both by Clark County and City of Vancouver. I would be remiss if we're talking about planning for parks if I didn't throw in the plug. We're in the midst of our comprehensive plan process. That is the foundational look at the community's needs and the infrastructure needs across the board. We're very involved in the comprehensive plan process, and the community has said very clearly that we need to make sure that parks are close to where all this housing is going. Make sure that the infrastructure serves the density that's coming. On the slide, you'll see the housing target numbers that under the Growth Management Act we're tasked with planning for. There's a lot of growth has happened in Clark County. people are moving here. There's a lot of growth anticipated. We really need to make sure through the comprehensive plan process that we have a plan to serve the needs of critical infrastructure. And parks and open space is absolutely critical infrastructure. And it becomes harder when you're competing for land. And so can't stress enough, we're very involved in the process. You can still get involved. The city will be adopting the full plan over the next 4 to 6 months. Next slide, please. Also, I'll add, sort of exciting opportunities. We're building new parks, and you can get involved as well. Some sites that are coming, Schaefer Community Park is near Vancouver Mall. We'll have construction occurring there in 2026. Bagley Community Park, right in the middle of Vancouver, will have a pretty significant redevelopment of an existing park to create a lot more community, different amenities and community space. That's coming in 27. There are other parks improvements you can check out in our Be Heard. One I really wanted to highlight, the photo on the left, is our most recent park in Clark County. That is at the Vancouver Innovation Site. Some of you may know that as the old Hewlett-Packard site, just off of 192nd Avenue, north of Southeast 34th Street. We've purchased 14 acres in that site and are working cooperatively with the developer. If you drive by, you see amazingly dense old growth forest. It's a really forested site. And so it presents an interesting challenge. How do we get the developed amenities in there and preserve this amazing tree canopy asset? And actually, this photo is in the middle of the site. There are amazing meadows in the site. So this is going to be an amazing process. It'll be challenging to really balance the various needs, but it's a really great site. And we're excited about our next community park, which is at the Vancouver Innovation Center. You can go to the Be Heard site, which is the way Vancouver gets information out about current projects, shares information, and gives you links to where you can get more involved. I thank you. We're going to have some questions, but I really can't emphasize enough. I think our future is better together. We need to think broadly, and we need to think holistically throughout the county. Again, I appreciate the leadership. That conversation has not happened. All of a sudden, it is happening, and there's a lot on the table, and I'm super excited about that. I think that's how we meet the needs of the community moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stop my screen share here so that we can have a great panel discussion. Let's make sure you can all get unmuted here. I'm going to make sure we can hear everybody. And everybody, please bear with me just as a moment when I pull up my questions. Thank you, everybody who submitted questions for us, for the panelists. And we're going to just keep this conversation going. This is meant to just be a discussion among folks who are experts in this and know what's going on. And as I mentioned, if you have questions for them, just continue to put those in the chat or follow-up questions on this discussion. And then we also will have their email addresses and contact information in one of the slides going forward. So if you have a specific question for one of the panelists, please send it to them directly as well. I just want to say, like, gosh, I love Clark County Parks. It is one of the reason that we moved here because we live right down the road from Whipple Creek. We saw that park and we were like, how do we find a place around Whipple Creek? Because we want to go there all the time. So we are just so thankful to live in this community with awesome parks. And we know that they take money and work. And we're thoughtful about how we're good partners in that. For those of you who are listening to tonight, I would encourage you, as we're having this discussion, to really think about how you can get involved and engaged on these topics. So our first question is for Ross, and then I welcome anybody else to also weigh in. Are there other counties or municipalities similar to Clark County that you believe offer strong models for parks and open space systems that are successfully meeting their community's needs?
Great question. Love that question. So, context. We are rapidly growing. We know we're going to essentially have as many people currently live in Vancouver coming to Clark County, those folks are all going to need parks. And guess what? We're not the first county to deal with this challenge and opportunity. So we have some great models out there. I will point north to King County as an example. In 2013, King County Parks was in a very similar situation, partly fueled by a rapid growth in population and development. And they had a need for some other source to keep their parks, natural areas, and trails viable and sustainable and usable as people continued to move to King County. So voters passed a levy, and that levy has provided additional funding to meet the growing need. And that levy has been renewed, I believe, 6 times now. It was just renewed in November. But they're not the only ones. We can look all across the country to find models that rapidly growing communities have used to meet the growth needs and demands put on by that rapid growth. Sonoma County Measure M is another really good example. I could go on. So what we're doing is gathering those models and case studies and examples and learning from those as a group of cities across the county, so that we can be best informed as to how to move forward.
Awesome. Continuing on that, I'm going to come to you first, Ross, and then we welcome the other panelists to step in and provide their thoughts. We just watched our neighbors to the south in the city of Portland successfully pass a 5-year levy that is going to raise an estimated 91 million per year for 5 years. So, what lessons are we taking from that successful levy initiative? And are there other specific funding strategies that we should be thinking about as we're entering this next phase in Clark County?
Yep, City of Portland's a great example. They were in a similar scenario where they had a significant gap in funding to meet the existing needs and a massive deferred maintenance list. You may have read about it in the papers or heard about it on the news at City of Portland. And so what happened in Portland is there was a really essentially the advocates throughout the city, the nonprofit groups, the advocate groups all came together and said, let's figure this out. Let's put a measure on the ballot and let the voters decide if funding parks to a sustainable level was something that they were interested in doing, and it passed in November. So I think lessons learned. I think we have some amazing amenities in our park system, and we want to continue that. We want to continue in that spirit. And so looking at some potential funding source to make that happen, I think is a similar situation to what City of Portland realized and solved for.
Great. Dave or Glenn, anything to add on that? No pressure, but if you want to, feel free to chime in.
I will say from a city perspective, we're involved in that conversation. I mean, I don't want to sound greedy, but we want to talk about community recreation events and everything as well. And so that may not always fit under one funding model. The other thing, I think it's complicated, and we're also thinking about, we want it to be a forever solution, and we want it to pay for not just building, but taking care of. Can we do all of that? It's challenging. We'll solve as many problems as we can, but just want to reinforce what Ross said. We're looking at other agencies and other jurisdictions that have done this, and we want to think as much long-term solution as possible.
There is actually something that I would add, and that is along the political nature of this. People are being stretched right now. Taxes are a tough issue right now with folks. I mean, that I don't need to elaborate on that. Everybody knows what's happening. Uh, my vision for this is, I think as we work together, if we have a countywide effort to fund our parks, I think we are much more likely to be successful than if we have the city of Vancouver doing one, the county doing one. Because quite frankly, um, When Vancouver runs a ballot measure for additional taxes, the county gets blamed for that and vice versa. That a lot of people don't know the difference between boundaries. So I think everybody coming at it with a unified message at one time is much more likely to be successful and it'll be a lot better all around in many different ways. So that is, I think, the importance of coming at this and finding a way that we can all work on it together.
And Councillor Young, also he mentioned Councillor Young mentioned this earlier. So when presenting the data that you saw tonight, um, we presented that similar data to County Council back in March, and you're welcome to go back and watch that March of 25 council work session. When we showed County Council the gaps in our system that exist currently, coupled with the population growth projections, I think it became apparent County Council really stepped up and recognized the need to bring together everyone, as Councilor Young just mentioned. And so County Council gave direction to us as staff to form a regional funding task team for parks. And so that group has met 6 times now and will continue to meet to look at the data like we just did, to understand the models of success in other regions throughout the country, and then to develop some kind of document that acts as a guide for us into the future and how we might solve this issue. And so that document will be presented to County Council, and we're aiming for early Q2, quarter two of 2026. And so there will be many more conversations of this, and we encourage you to get engaged, no matter where you stand on this topic. County Council needs to hear from you on this.
That's great. I love that y'all are thinking about efficiencies and economies of scale while you're thinking about solving this problem. I think that's going to be really put a lot of folks at ease in terms of thinking about our bottom line in our households. Um, Glenn, this next question, I'm going to come to you first, and then I'll have Dave and Ross kind of weigh in. It's on developer built parks and impact fees. Recently, the DEEB, which is the Development and Engineering Advisory Board, has discussed the possibility of allowing developers to construct local parks in lieu of paying park impact fees. From your slides, of course, we saw the impact of park impact fees on budgets. And so, from your perspective, what potential benefits could this approach offer? What challenges or risks are you looking at in terms of making sure that these parks would meet long-term community needs?
Well, I'll talk about it from more of a policy perspective, and then Ross is much better expert at this than I am. But I would just say that, we have to be very careful with impact fees because they do have a direct impact on the cost of housing in our community. Not just new housing. I mean, existing housing follows the price of new construction. So when you make housing more expensive for new construction, you're also making existing housing more expensive. So we have to be very careful and have a balanced approach to that. Um, and I think, if we can look at alternative ways that we can make our dollars go further. So, and I think this would be one example of that. Private development is likely in many ways, probably not all, but in many ways more equipped to more efficiently and with less dollars create some of this park space. And I, just look from my perspective, the risk is making sure that you have continuity in the system and that you're not just getting different things all, it has to be a part of an overall overarching plan, and the standards have to be the same as if the county would do it. So whether or not we can get there, I don't know for sure. I know that some of the cities had that are meeting as part of this do have some of those components taking place. So we didn't go into depth in how successful that was. But any way that we can get our dollars to stretch further and also be careful about the impact that we are having on the price of housing is important.
I'm not an attorney, but I'll kind of play one. There are some real clear guardrails under state law and case law in this. Um, if somebody's donating something, if there's coordination on donating something to become a public asset, we have to consider certain public works laws in the creation of that asset. What that really means is we can't have somebody build something to us and give it to the city to become city infrastructure unless it follows guidelines such as it's openly bid. We assure prevailing wages. So there are, and that's a kind of a broad brush. There are great opportunities for collaboration and with private interests in the development community. We're doing that frequently with like partial improvements where that is much easier to do under current law, widening a frontage and things like that. It's part of the tool chest. I just wanted to, sort of caution. There are some real important guardrails there, and they're there for good reasons, and that can be difficult to navigate. But I couldn't agree more with what Glenn said. We have to be creative. We have to get out of our our current pace and our current approach and think really creatively about these situations and see where that fits in.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in add to the already great comments about this topic. So when we're thinking about impact fee credits or offsets, essentially a developer using those impact fee dollars to develop a park on site on the property that they're developing already. Is that the challenge of scale as it relates to a county park system is that those developments that might develop infrastructure using impact fee credits are not at a county park scale. And so when you think about county parks, they're large. Where this can be utilized successfully is connecting high density development uh, via trails. And that can be a regional trail that a developer may pay for through impact fee credits, a small section or a segment of that trail. And so, absolutely a great tool and echo Counselor Young and Dave's thoughts as well.
When you're considering, just to follow on to this, when you're considering looking at options like this in your long range planning, how do you think about budget and impacts on budget and also making not just capital, but thinking about consistent delivery and maintenance of parks across those different communities? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. So as it relates to impact fees, so impact fees per state statute cannot be utilized for maintenance and operations. They can only be utilized to expand the system for those new residents and that new development and their impact. And so they simply can't act as a source for operations and maintenance funding. And so the potential sources, this is really one of the main areas of focus of the regional parks funding task team, and that is operations and maintenance funding. How do we pay to maintain what we have? And then as we develop the future components of the next generation of the system, how do we maintain and operate that? And so the potential sources are much more limited, and there's not a clear mechanism that most governing bodies have that they can institute themselves. Typically, they're money measures, so levies or some other type of mechanism that voters need to approve.
Great. All right, I'm going to continue on. You all gave us a bunch of ideas for community engagement, but I think one of the most exciting ones is the strategic planning that's going to take place. So I'm hoping, Ross, you can just talk a little bit more about that strategic planning of the PROS plan and opportunities for folks to get involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, so at Clark County Parks and Nature, um, per Growth Management Act, each jurisdiction in the state needs to plan for parks, trails, and natural areas and develop parks, trails, and natural areas to meet the needs of their community. What the needs of a particular community are not defined by the state. They're defined at the local level. And so that's where the system plan or what's called the Parks Recreation Open Space Trails Plan comes in. is we all get to figure out what that looks like. And that's exciting. And it is a process that we're undertaking this year. So we are in the process in the main process. We're in the step that we are selecting our consultant group to come help us with that work. And that consultant group will bring on board. It will consist of a series of meaningful engagement sessions, different meetings and activities in parks where we're gaining and learning insights from everyone in the county. And a key element of that is not only just the parks, but the trail system. And so we hope to really clearly define what our future trail system will look like, what those corridors are, and how we connect cities and communities within the county. Think of this as an off right of way or off road network of wide paths, concrete and asphalt paths that you can ride your bike, your scooter, walk, run. So it acts as a set of transportation infrastructure, as also it does act as a recreation corridor for walks and hikes. And so we don't know what those corridors are yet. We have a really great start. There was planning that was done years ago, um, but it is vast. There are many corridors identified. What we want to hear from everyone is where should we really focus? Let's pick 3 to 5 corridors and really laser focus on those corridors and build them so that we have a functional off-road trail system, a regional trail system. It would be amazing to be able to hop on a trail network and ride your bike from Vancouver uh, up to Ridgefield, over to over. I mean, pick your spot, right? So that's the exercise we're going to go through, and we're just excited. And again, we need to hear from all of you as to what that looks like. So keep your eyes open. We're going to be sending out all sorts of emails and engagement connection points to you. Um, and stay engaged. Be a part of that process. It's really not. It's really not something that can be thought up in a room by a bunch of folks that know parks. It really has to represent your wants and needs and desires.
One thing that I might add to when we're talking about, the system as a whole and planning for the future, and kind of circling back to what I'd mentioned earlier about, increased density and infill. You look downtown, and I'm seeing all these comments in here about trees and the importance of trees. If you look downtown, there's not really any trees, where these big multifamily buildings are built. When we're looking at infill, where there might be a tree or two in somebody's backyard, now there'll be an ADU. So as these things continue to change our built environment, parks are going to become even more and more critical because they're really going to have to pick up the slack for some of the green space that we're losing as we build higher density.
I'm gonna pivot us to, we have about maybe 9 or 10 minutes left here of this panel discussion. And I know we have Kevin Tyler with us tonight who can potentially answer some questions on Camp Bonneville. We had a few questions from our membership about the role of Camp Bonneville in our long-term vision for parks in Clark County. So, Kevin, hopefully you're able to unmute and welcome, and please feel free to introduce yourself after I read this question out. But there's a lot of curiosity about how it fits into Clark County's long-term vision for parks and open spaces, what role you see it playing once the cleanup and transition efforts are complete.
Great. That's a great question. Hello, everybody. Kevin Tyler. So I manage the lands management division of Public Works. Camp Bonneville falls underneath that. And so I think, for the future, Camp Bonneville is something that I think the county envisioned as being a great resource for our parks. And it fits into that sort of regional category that Ross talked about earlier. Um, when it was envisioned for it to be transferred to the county, they developed a reuse plan that had all these recreational elements built into it, with the idea that there was about 1,000 acres of the park or of the property that would be for, like those recreational purposes. And then other parts of the property would be more like wildlife management and forest conservation and things of that nature. So I think that's sort of what we have to look forward to in the future. There's a lot more of that sort of planning work that Ross has been talking about where we can kind of build on that. And again, that's, I think, out in the future several to many years as we continue the cleanup process on the property. I think currently we have showing in there 350 acres of the property as sort of like a phase one um, regional park development type of thing. Um, Again, and that's, we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but there's that placeholder in that existing pros plan and something that we can build on in future system plans as we develop those. Ross, anything you want to add?
No, I think that that's a great response. I think Camp Bonneville is an amazing site, and I think that the vision for that space is has yet to be realized. But I think in the future, when we have an opportunity to think about specifically what we want that site to become, how we want that site to behave, and how we want to interact with that site in the future, um, that's again is really a process of conversation between all residents who are interested in engaging in that. And I think with the amount of space uh, potentially there to think about for use as recreational space, as park space, as natural trails, it's really exciting. And I think that uh, the ideas that will come out of that process are going to be really fun to imagine and envision what that place can become. And yes, there's no doubt there is work before we can get to that day
Mm-hmm.
where we can do the fun visioning. Uh, and but recognizing that that's on the horizon for us in the county is really exciting.
A follow-on question that we had specifically for Counselor Young related to Camp Bonneville was just, there is this vision to see this site be used as a regional park and a lot of excitement around it. Can you talk a little bit about the council's recent decision to allow continued federal law enforcement to use that site, given that it does delay the cleanup? Can you speak a little bit more to the current use of that site?
Sure. I can't, first of all, I can't speak for the other council members, but I can speak for myself. And, parks to me are incredibly important. In fact, every one of us that enters office kind of really has our priorities. And that really is what it comes down to because, the county, the cities, they don't have unlimited resources. And so, you really have to pick what is your priority. And I think that's the importance of having elected officials is they bring that kind of overarching policy, like this is where we're going to focus and concentrate our resources and efforts. Parks is really high up on that list for me. But it's not the only thing that I have to consider. There are a lot of other elements that we have to consider when we make all of the decisions. And unfortunately, with any subject, the most passionate ones that I have, I can never dedicate all the attention to that particular aspect of things at the detriment of others. I can't hire new people to join the parks department and lay off people in community planning or, community development or wherever. You can't rob Peter to pay Paul. And so, with that being said, Camp Bonneville, the FBI range, it's a tough issue. Do I feel like the FBI range belongs at Camp Bonneville? At least in the existence that we have today, no, I don't. Is it that simple for me to just say goodbye? No, it's more complicated than that. There is the public safety issue and trying to have our law enforcement partners supported in all ways that they can. And then for me, really one of the biggest issues is making the county hold from a previous contract. That uh, you know, the FBI made mistakes. The county certainly made mistakes as well. You know, we were not the greatest landlords. We let a lease lapse and didn't do anything about that. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. All of us have some level of responsibility in that. But my thing is, with no contract with the FBI, we more than likely lose any ability to collect what we had anticipated in terms of support for the previous years of contract. So it partially was a financial decision. If we didn't continue on with them, there's a good chance that we'd be doing all the cleanup by ourselves without any support from them. So there's a lot of things that go into that. It's a tough issue, and I absolutely respect everybody's voices and opinions on that. When I deliberate and when I think of all things, that is what I feel is best overall for the park itself in the long run. Yes, there's going to be some additional uh, activity taking place that doesn't serve the ultimate long-term goals of the property as a park, but it makes us better equipped when we're ready to really work on cleanup there because the cleanup of the shooting range and the cleanup of the entire site are two different, completely different animals. You know, the cleanup of, and I'm not understating it, there's certainly going to be considerable effort that needs to take place for the shooting range, but compared to the overall site cleanup, it is very, very minimal. And I hope that helps to at
Thank
least
you.
convey the messaging that or the thought process that I had in that decision.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor Young. I think I have time for one more question, and I have like three really good questions here. But I'm gonna focus on uh, legacy lands because I don't think we've even really touched on it yet. So, how can we fit the goal of preserving the Suisun area or legacy forest lands in general under the umbrella of increasing our parklands? What's compatible there? Talk more about that.
Yeah, I can address that at least initially. So the intersection of what Ross was talking about, the park system plan and the legacy lands program, they go hand in hand. We have a natural areas acquisition plan that supports the legacy lands program, and it essentially defines what are high value conservation lands, what are open space lands that are eligible for conservation futures funding. And so forest lands falls within that category. Um, and so, I think it fits the goal of forest conservation, legacy forest, Suisun area, all falls under that umbrella of the legacy lands program. And it's something that, Ross and I have talked a lot about, and we're building that natural areas acquisition plan update into the park system plan update so we can hear from community members about what do they value, how do we go about preserving forests, where is it important to preserve forests, those kind of things. So looking forward to it, excited about it.
Thanks so much. Any other thoughts from the other panelists? Otherwise, I'll keep going.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Kevin said that so the park system plan and as Kevin mentioned, the natural areas acquisition plan is going to be done in concert and close together and really it makes the whether it's a legacy land or it's a park, it's really part of the whole system of spaces to go out and recreate and be well and enjoy friends. And so we're thinking of it and planning for it in that context. Just so everyone knows, Legacy Lands is an amazing program. It's per state statute. A tax can be imposed, and Clark County imposed this tax really early on in the history of conservation futures tax implementation. So we're an early implementer of that. That tax can only be utilized to acquire and care for conservation lands. So we should really feel proud about that at Clark County and throughout the county. We've been able to acquire just some amazing spaces as a result of that program, and that will continue into the future.
Awesome. I want to thank our panelists again so much. Time flies when you're having fun, or when you're talking about parks where you're going to go have so much fun this coming year. I'm going to pull up our slide deck again and just walk us through a last few call to actions, some good contact information. Again, we're going to send all of this out to y'all so that it's in your inboxes so that you know what to do. I also just want to call out that I saw folks from the Clark County Parks Foundation here. I saw folks here from the Intertwine Alliance. Thank you. We have amazing community partners. I know that there are people here who are going to be driving this effort forward in the future. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that, I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen one more time and take us home. So, this is a great slide. This is how you can get involved. So, if you live in Clark County, please join and volunteer. There's a Clark County Parks Advisory Board. We have a link that will come out, and please stay tuned for this system-wide planning. I know that you all love a focus group. You love to share your ideas. We have such an engaged membership, and that is awesome. So, we will be sharing more through Friends of Clark County. Please join and volunteer at the also, if you live in Vancouver for the Parks Advisory Commission, forgive me, that QR code is in completely the wrong place. We'll make sure that's corrected when we send that out. And please get involved with the comprehensive planning process. As Dave mentioned, it's parks are involved in there and they are at the county level as well. So awesome opportunities for you all to get involved. And hey, you can also donate to support the mission of Friends of Clark County. Parks are core to our mission as well. So, and we have a policy group that works on this. We hope to be strong partners as we look at this next phase in our strategic planning. Your donations cover our community engagement, cover our operations. We are fully funded by our membership. So thank you, thank you, thank you for considering a donation to us. We also encourage you to volunteer. You could join our board. We encourage you to stay informed by signing up for our newsletter or following us on social media and engage, right, with your elected officials, with county and city staff on issues that matter to you. I have been so just pleased with my engagement over in the time that I've lived in Clark County. I have found a group of human beings who listen to my concerns, who care about what I care about, and are working to make our community better. So engage, engage, engage. And get in touch with the folks here, including me. And please let us know what you thought. We'll be sending out a survey after this, and we'll make sure that you have all of this contact information. And with that, thank you. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you all for spending your evening with us. And with that, we're going to let you go, hopefully eat some dinner or have a relaxing evening. Thanks everybody for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.